it should be.
Very good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in to News 9. I'm Karthik Malhotra. The big story that we're bringing to you on this hour is that tobacco taxation kicks in from the 1st of February. Cigarettes and Bidis to get more expensive. Government to use the proceeds to sponsor the Health Security Sin National Security Act. That's the big story for you on the show this morning. Also on the show, the pension regulator PFRDA has allowed banks to now sponsor the NPS or the National Pension Scheme. We'll tell you all about that as well on the show this morning. And of course, we close this show with investment strategies, the investment playbook for 2026. With a special set of experts joining us to tell you where to put your money this year. All this and more on this edition of Morning Brief at 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. First up, let's bring you all the headlines we are following for you this Friday morning. Indian car makers post strong December dealer sales with market leader Maruti Suzuki's small car segment jumping as much as 50% to a 12-month high, while Tata Motors passenger vehicle sales rise 13%. India's pension regulator allows banks to sponsor national pension system funds, aiming to boost competition and deepen the long-term savings market. Vodafone Idea now hit with a 638 crore rupee tax demand under the Central GST Act, adding pressure on the telecom operator as it battles financial stress and regulatory challenges. In global news, US President Donald Trump orders National Guard troops out of Chicago, Los Angeles and Portland, but says federal forces could be redeployed if crime rises. US calls China's military drills around Taiwan unnecessary, urges Beijing to halt pressure on Taipei amid growing regional unease. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro expresses willingness to open dialogue with the United States as he appeared to dodge questions on Washington's recent military action on a Venezuelan dock. Democratic Socialist leader Zoran Mamdani takes office as the first Muslim mayor of New York City, pledging progressive governance and setting up likely confrontations with Republican President Donald Trump. US pharma firms prepare to raise prices on 350 medicines, including cancer, COVID and RSV drugs, even as the Trump administration pushes to curb healthcare costs. And Chinese auto giant BYD sets a record with 2.26 million electric vehicles sold in 2025, even as the market watches closely for Tesla's final sales tally of the year. Our first story this morning, car makers have reported a strong rise in the month of December sales to dealers with the GST cuts that came into effect from September, fueling demand into the final month of the calendar year 2025. Remember, in the month of September, India cut goods and services tax or GST on small cars to 18% from the existing 28%, and on SUVs with larger engine capacities to 40% from about 50%, all in a bid to spur consumer spending and bolster growth amid steep US tariffs. Now, this benefited market leader Maruti Suzuki's small car portfolio, its biggest segment, with sales rising 50% to as high as 92,929 units, the highest since Jan last year. Now, in the full year, Maruti Suzuki sold over 18.4 lakh cars, staying as the dominant #1 player on Indian roads. Meanwhile, its peers, Tata Motors passenger vehicles reported a 13% rise in domestic sales, with models such as the Nexon and Punch utility vehicles and the Tiago small car driving growth. On year, it grew as much as 3.5% to close the year with close to 6 lakh units sold. Now, Tata expects sales growth to pick up in coming months as deliveries of newly launched models like the Sierra SUV commence. Meanwhile, Mahindra & Mahindra, which has a car portfolio comprised entirely of SUVs, said its monthly sales grew 23% in December and a similar growth clocked on a year-to-year basis, closing the year with 4.8 lakh cars sold. Its sales growth of 20% so far in FY26 is among the fastest in the Indian car market. Meanwhile, Hyundai's monthly sales, on the other hand, grew only 0.5% in December, while annually its sales tanked more than 6.5%. India's pension fund regulator has allowed banks to sponsor pension funds that will manage monies under the National Pension System or NPS in a bid to bolster competition in the sector. The Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority or PFRDA said in a statement that it had given in-principle approval for banks to independently set up pension funds to manage NPS, subject to eligibility norms aligned with the Reserve Bank of India's guidelines. Banks will have to meet eligibility criteria linked to net worth, market capitalization and prudential soundness, it added. Now, currently, banks serve as points of presence, handling subscriber registrations, contributions and other system services. Some existing pension funds have ties to financial institutions, including banks. At present, there are 10 registered pension funds under the PFRDA. The change is part of broader reforms by the regulator. In December, the PFRDA allowed NPS subscribers to invest in gold and silver exchange-traded funds or ETFs and the Nifty 50 index as well as the alternative investment funds. The regulator also revised the investment management fee structure for pension funds starting April 1st this year, according to the latest release. Additionally, 3 new trustees have been appointed to the NPS Trust Board, including Dinesh Kumar Khara, the former chairman of the country's largest lender, the State Bank of India. In corporate news this morning, Vodafone Idea has received a GST penalty order of 638 crore rupees passed under Section 74 of the Central Goods and Services Tax Act 2017. In an exchange filing, the telecom company said yesterday it received the penalty order from the office of the Additional Commissioner CGST Ahmedabad South on December 31st. It further stated that the company does not agree with the order and will take appropriate legal action against the same. The order alleges short payment of tax and excess availment of input tax credit. The maximum financial impact is to the extent of tax demand, interest and penalty levied. Now, earlier on Wednesday, remember, Vodafone Idea issued a clarification after reports claimed that the Union Cabinet had approved a 5-year moratorium and frozen the company's adjusted gross revenue dues of 87,695 crore rupees. In a stock exchange filing, Vodafone Idea said the reports were speculative in nature and that it had not received any official communication confirming such a decision. The clarification came amid heightened market reaction to the reports. Following the earlier report, Vodafone Idea shares witnessed heavy selling pressure. The company's shares closed at 11.63 rupees a piece, up 8% in trade yesterday. And the Finance Ministry has issued a series of notifications that would bring into effect the new taxation regime for tobacco products from the 1st of February 2026. First of all, it notified that the Central Excise Amendment Act 2025 passed in the recently concluded winter session of Parliament would come into force from 1st Feb. Now, this act specifies new rates for excise duty on tobacco products. It also notified that the provisions of the Health Securities and National Security Act 2025, which currently levies a cess on the manufacture of pan masala, will come into force from the 1st of February. In an accompanying FAQ note, the ministry explained that under the Goods and Services Tax regime, the excise duty on cigarettes had so far been rendered a nominal amount of a fraction of a paisa per cigarette stick, and that the GST compensation cess on the rate on tobacco products had not been increased since it was implemented in July 2017. It also said that for India, affordability has either stagnated or increased in the past decade, meaning cigarettes have not become more expensive relative to consumers' purchasing power. This is contrary to global public health guidance, which emphasizes annual increase in specific excise duties to ensure that real cigarette prices rise faster than real incomes. The government on September 22nd last year had removed the incidence of the cess on most items except tobacco items. Now, from the 1st of February 2026, the cess will no longer apply on these items either, effectively ending it. Now, at the same time, the Finance Ministry also notified the new GST rates for tobacco products. Bidis have been moved to the 18% category from the now defunct 28% slab, in effect making them cheaper. All other tobacco products have been moved to the higher 40% tax slab. These new rules will be effective from 1st of Feb 2026. Finally, the ministry also introduced a new valuation mechanism for tobacco products such as chewing tobacco, filter kenny, zarda, scented tobacco, gutka and more, whereby the GST value would be determined based on the retail sale price declared on the package. Now, regarding the Health Securities and National Security Act 2025, the ministry justified the inclusion of the national security aspect by saying that conventional tax revenues cannot always guarantee funding for national security functions, and so a dedicated cess is the need for the purpose. And with that, we slip into a very short break, but global stories coming up on the other side of the break. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
2026, take notes. Manifesting. For my little Miss Sunshine, tickles and giggles. Also wanna be a biker chick this time. And dear 2026, only love for my people and myself. To manifest my best life, nature's cosmic energy.
Now mine, natural diamond intention pendants.
सन डायरेक्ट लेकर आया है एक जबरदस्त नया टीवी पैक। यहाँ असली 2 साल का निवेश, 100+ चैनल्स, HD क्वालिटी बॉक्स और रिचार्ज की टेंशन 2 साल के लिए खत्म। तो अभी लगवाइए सन डायरेक्ट, यहाँ खर्चा नहीं, 2 साल का असली निवेश।
सन डायरेक्ट सब्सक्रिप्शन पाने के लिए अपने नजदीकी रिटेलर से जल्द ही संपर्क करें और घर पर सन टनाटन।
A resurgent India is racing towards the Viksit Bharat goal, braving global economic headwinds. Bulletproofing our economy from these uncertainties are Bharat's homegrown businesses. Powered by tech-led innovation, Indian entrepreneurs are truly scaling up, riding the next wave of disruption with AI and cloud to break into the big global league. TV9 Network in association with SAP presents Visionaries of Viksit Bharat, a series celebrating inspirational business leaders shaping tomorrow. Watch them take an iconic leap at Visionaries of Viksit Bharat conclaves. Exclusively on News 9.
Welcome back. You're watching News 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. On to global stories that we're tracking for you this Friday morning. US President Donald Trump has announced the withdrawal of the National Guard from Chicago, Los Angeles and Portland, but warned federal forces could return if crime rises. Local leaders in all 3 cities have opposed the move, calling the Guard's presence unnecessary and accusing Washington of federal overreach.
US President Donald Trump said Wednesday that his administration was pulling the National Guard from Chicago, Los Angeles and Portland. In a social media post, Trump said that federal forces could return when crime begins to soar again. He also claimed that crime had been greatly reduced because of the troops. Local leaders in those cities have argued that the National Guard deployments were unnecessary, accusing Washington of federal overreach. They also say the administration exaggerated isolated incidents of violence to justify sending in troops. Trump has defended the deployments in some of those cities, saying they were needed to fight crime and protect federal property and personnel from protesters. Judges reviewing lawsuits brought by affected cities have consistently ruled that the administration exceeded its authority. They found no evidence to support claims that troops were necessary to protect federal property from protesters. Trump's announcement came just before a federal appeals court ordered the return of several hundred California National Guard personnel to State Governor Gavin Newsom's control. It followed a US Supreme Court ruling on December 23rd, blocking Trump's attempt to deploy Guard troops in Illinois. The court said the president's authority to take federal control of National Guard troops only applies in exceptional circumstances. Officials who opposed Trump's actions said the legal setbacks forced his hand to pull troops. Newsom's office called Trump's explanation the political version of "You can't fire me, I quit." Trump's troop deployments began in June amid protests over his hardline immigration policies and expanded deportation efforts.
Seeing the stories from the US, left-wing Democrat Zohran Mamdani was sworn in as New York City's mayor on Thursday, vowing to prove progressive politics can deliver results and signaling likely clashes with US President Donald Trump. Now, thousands gathered in freezing conditions outside City Hall to witness the 34-year-old's inauguration after his impressive political rise from relative anonymity just a year ago. In his first address, Mamdani, the city's first Muslim mayor, focused on cost of living pressures, promising support for those he said had been betrayed by the established order. Listen in.
Today, we are announcing 3 executive orders. The first will be to revive the mayor's office to protect tenants. We will not compromise on housing quality. If your landlord does not responsibly steward your home, city government will step in. The second is to create a LIFT task force. LIFT stands for Land Inventory Fast Track, to leverage city-owned land and accelerate housing development. The last executive order is the creation of the SPEED task force. SPEED standing for streamlining procedures to expedite equitable development. This task force will identify and remove bureaucratic and permitting barriers that drive up costs and slow housing construction and lease up.
Meanwhile, pharmaceutical companies plan to raise US prices on at least 350 branded medicines, including COVID and RSV, as well as blockbuster cancer drugs, according to data from healthcare research firm 3Axis Advisors. Now, the planned hikes come even as the Trump administration pressures drug makers to cut costs for patients.
Drug makers plan to raise U.S. prices on at least 350 branded medications in 2026, including vaccines and blockbuster cancer treatment Ibrance. That's according to data provided exclusively to Reuters by healthcare research firm 3Axis Advisors. The hikes come even as the Trump administration is pressuring drug makers for cuts. The number of price increases is up from the same point last year, while the median price hike of 4% is in line with 2025. The increases do not reflect any rebates to pharmacy benefit managers and other discounts. Drug makers also plan to cut the list prices on around 9 drugs, including diabetes treatment Jardiance, which is dropping 40%. It is among the 10 drugs for which the U.S. government negotiated a lower price for the Medicare program for people aged 65 and older in 2026. A health policy researcher tells Reuters these deals are being announced as transformative, when in fact they really just nibble around the margins in terms of what is really driving high prices for prescription drugs in the U.S. U.S. patients currently pay by far the most for prescription medicines, often nearly 3 times more than in other developed nations. Pfizer announced the most list price hikes on around 80 different drugs, including cancer drug Ibrance and its COVID vaccine, which is going up 15%. Pfizer said in a statement it had adjusted the average list price of its innovative medicines and vaccines for 2026 below the overall rate of inflation. More price hikes and cuts can be expected in early January, which is historically the biggest month for drug makers to raise prices.
All right, moving on from the US now to other stories. Russia's defense ministry has released a video footage it claims shows a downed drone, alleging Ukraine attempted to attack the residence of President Vladimir Putin. Kyiv, remember, has denied the accusation, while officials in several Western countries have expressed skepticism and questioned whether any such attack actually occurred. Take a look.
Russia's defense ministry on Wednesday released video footage of what it said was a downed drone. At a briefing intended to show Ukraine tried this week to attack a presidential residence and challenge Kyiv's denials that such an attack took place. Kyiv has accused Russia of inventing the alleged attack to block progress at talks on ending the war. The Russian Defense Ministry video showed a senior officer setting out details of how Moscow says it believes Ukraine attacked one of President Vladimir Putin's residences in the Novgorod region. The video included footage of a Russian serviceman standing next to fragments of a device, which he said was a downed Ukrainian drone carrying an explosive device which had not detonated. The ministry did not explain how it knew what the device's target was. Reuters could not confirm the location and the date of the footage showing fragments of a destroyed device, and the model of the destroyed device could not be immediately verified. A spokesperson for Ukraine's foreign ministry, who spoke to Reuters, said the footage was, quote, laughable, and added Kyiv was, quote, absolutely confident that no such attack took place. Officials in several Western countries have cast doubt on Russia's version of events and questioned whether there was any attack.
Meanwhile, in his New Year address, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Kyiv wants to end the war with Russia, but not at any cost. Zelensky warned he would not accept a weak peace deal and that risks prolonging the conflict. The remarks follow his comments earlier this week that Kyiv is discussing with Washington a possible U.S. troop presence as part of future security guarantees to compensate for no NATO membership.
What does Ukraine want? Peace. Yes. At any cost? No. We want the end of the war, not the end of Ukraine. Are we tired? Extremely. Does that mean we are ready to surrender? Those who think so are deeply mistaken. Ukraine does not need a Ming-style meticulously drafted trap. Signatures under weak agreements only fuel war. My signature will be under a strong agreement.
Moving on now, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro on Thursday avoided giving a clear answer on whether the United States carried out a strike on a dock inside Venezuela, even as he signaled openness of renewed engagement with Washington after weeks of rising military presence. Now, speaking in an interview on state television, Maduro said that he was willing to cooperate with the United States on issues ranging from drug trafficking to oil and migration. However, the Venezuelan leader stopped short of confirming or denying reports of a U.S. land strike on a docking facility allegedly used by drug traffickers. Now, when pressed directly on the same, Maduro said it was something that could be discussed in a few days. Now, the comments follow statements by U.S. President Donald Trump, who said earlier this week that American forces had destroyed a dock used by what he described as Venezuelan drug boats. Meanwhile, Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te said on Thursday the island is determined to defend its sovereignty and strengthen its military following fresh Chinese drills that included rocket launches towards Taiwan. The remarks come days after Beijing's exercises dubbed Justice Mission 2025, which saw dozens of rockets fired and warships and aircraft deployed near the island, drawing concern from Western allies.
As for what you mentioned, that China hopes to be ready to attack Taiwan by 2027, whether it can achieve its goal on schedule is another matter. We must stand shoulder to shoulder with democratic countries, fulfill Taiwan's responsibility to safeguard our own country, while we can also see that every Indo-Pacific nation is strengthening its defense capabilities.
All right, with that, we will slip into another short break. But if you are wondering how to start your investment cycle in 2026 or how to progress further on your investments, well, we've got you covered. We'll get you a battery of 3 experts who will tell you what your investment playbook for 2026 should be. That on the other side of the break.
This isn't a trail of peace. This is pressure overload. A hill built for 1,000 forced to carry lakhs.
Instead of lightening the footprint, you have allowed people to actually get into every nook and corner of the Himalayas.
Careless travel, choking hills. If we don't change now, there won't be much left to enjoy.
We need to follow the Bhutan model, regulate people who can access hills.
News 9 presents Heal the Hills, continuous coverage.
Welcome to the new episode of Season 2 Malaysia.
Red Fort explosion. Let's get you all the updates. Following the blast, there is of course a South Indian connection of Dr. Shaheen Shahid. Because this is news of national import that search operations are underway across the entire Al-Falah University campus. The blast killed 12 people. Prices, however, of Nandini ghee have been hiked. KMF has defended Nandini is the brand. I've been getting a lot of queries on my phone. What's for the people of Karnataka? Okay, you can play tennis as much as you want to, but I'm the umpire and I will say please. There is an eyeball to eyeball confrontation. Where is this going? What is the way out? The farmers, they can actually shake a nation. Both of you down because I can also shout Prashantji.